Welcome back to the Bhagavad-gita in a Year podcast. I'm Radha, and I'm here with Chaitanya Charan Prabhu and Russell Prabhu. And we are on day 48 of our journey through the Bhagavad-gita. And today we will start at chapter 3, text 13. We are talking about sacrifices.
Yes. We're going into a bit of esoteric stuff now when we are discussing over here. So let's look at the verse and then we'll continue our discussion. Yajna shishta shina santo muchyante sarva kilvishay bhunjate te tvagam papa ye pachantyatma karanat.
Translation: The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first for sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin.
Yes. So now here, I'll recap what has been discussed. This is an expansion from text 3.9, that work as a sacrifice, it leads to freedom. It keeps one free from, it leads to freedom from bondage, or it keeps one free from bondage. So what is the rationale for that? That is what Krishna is elaborating. And to explain that, review the rationale for that, Krishna is now talking about a worldview over here. And that worldview is involving the idea that worldview is that we humans, it's not just I and my path ahead and my choices. So yes, we have a path ahead, but we are a part of a much bigger universe. And when you understand that we are a part of this universe, what the Gita asserts is that above us there are higher beings, the devatas, the gods. So we contribute, we serve the gods by sacrifice, and they reciprocate by providing us life's necessities, utilities. So that is explained over here now. Let's see what is specifically being talked about. That this verse says, continuing that theme, the 12th text, the last word was stena. Stena is, such a person is a thief. So we discuss what thief means is somebody who takes facilities from the government but doesn't pay taxes. Then that person is a lawbreaker. Similarly, here what is being stated is a person who does not follow the law, who does not work cooperatively. That person is so two kinds of people have been talked about here. That those who sacrifice and those who don't. So one part being said over here is those who sacrifice, they are free from sins, and those who don't sacrifice, their life becomes full of sins. So their life becomes free of sins. You could say their life becomes full of sins. So what's going on over here? That again, if you go back to the government example, if somebody is not paying taxes, then maybe the electricity or water is not going to be cut off. Maybe the government is not going to haul them immediately. But eventually, they will be held accountable. Eventually, they will have to pay for their actions. So that broader view is given over here. And when we perform sacrifices, Now let's go a little bit more into sacrifices as a sacrifice. What does it mean? So I'll talk of it at three levels. There's the principle which I introduced. When I talk about principle at a psychological level or a human level, that those who are able to trade the present for the future, those who understand that by giving up the immediate pleasure of, say, just watching a movie, I can have a brighter future if I study and I build a career. So as a principle, you could say it's a psychological principle, it's a human principle, it's a universal principle. Now, we could talk about it also in terms of the element of a worldview. And then we could talk about it as a ritual. So as a ritual, as a specific ritual, the word ritual has a negative connotation, so we could just use the word a specific practice. So the specific practice was what is called as a fire sacrifice. Now, in the broad Vedic tradition, which nowadays is known by the name Hinduism, this is one of the most visually dramatic practices where people light a fire and then they put things in the fire and some mantras are chanted. And now the nearest equivalent you can have in the Western world is a campfire or a bonfire, but they are very different. That is practice. It is just for pleasure or something else. There is no sanctified purpose in it, no sanctification, nothing sacred about it. But there is something much deeper going on in the idea of fire sacrifices. So we will come to the specific practice of fire sacrifices a little later. But within the worldview, so we're talking about the principle, we're talking about the element within a particular worldview. And in the element within a particular worldview means that we talked about taxes by humans for taking things from the universe. So if we consider the environment we live in, at a basic level, each one of us needs light, we need heat, we need air, we need water, we need food. And if we consider at least these four, we can't produce. Now we claim to produce this, but actually we can't produce we can't produce the raw materials for this. What we do is we say food production, but it's actually food processing. What in agriculture, it's nature which is providing us these things. So we humans are actually dependent for our needs on arrangements far beyond ourselves. We may say, I work and I get food on my table. Well, yes, not entirely true. I may work, but if there is a famine, if there is a drought, no matter how much I work, the food won't come. So our work, and if you consider the cosmic arrangement, so in one sense, our work is necessary, but it is secondary. The cosmic arrangement is necessary and it is primary. So we are dependent on things far beyond ourselves. For example, if I consider that birds, every morning when birds start chirping, the birds search for food. They search for grains. Now that if their work is primary, but the searching for grains is not producing the grains. It is nature's arrangement, nature's benevolence, we can say. So there is they may be searching for grains, they may be searching for food in any other form also. When they are searching for it, it is nature which is arranging that for them. And if nature does not arrange, the birds may search and search and search. There will be no fruits and they will die. Similarly, we humans, we are dependent on factors far beyond our control. And those factors can affect us in ways that we can't even conceive. So acknowledging that the universe has so many ways in which it works is the beginning of, it brings some humility. It brings some sense of responsibility. Humility is that I am dependent on things far beyond myself. And responsibility is I need to do something in reciprocation with those factors beyond myself. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm being ungrateful and I will be incriminated by that. And that is what the two kinds of people, those who sacrifice and those who don't sacrifice, they are being contrasted over here. That we are not just isolated beings living on our own without caring for the universe. We just can't do that. And to some extent, this idea is coming out in environmental consciousness now. Now, when there's environmental consciousness, we understand that we can't just be indiscriminately taking from nature. We need to be understanding that the universe works according to certain intricate balances. If we are taking, we have to make sure that we are also giving. If we are simply for industrialization, just destroying trees, then nature has its own balance. And if trees are eradicated, that can have a catastrophic event, a consequence in the long run. So for us, when we get this bigger worldview, then we understand that if I take from nature, then I have to give back to nature. So now this understanding is leading us to more, say, trying to live in harmony with nature. Now, the specific things which need to be done to live more harmoniously, that could be a matter of debate, and that could even become a matter of political opportunism or commercial exploitation. I'm not getting into the politics of this. I'm focusing on the principle that we can't just take the earth for granted, that the earth is there just for my taking. So this vision that there is a bigger universe which is providing me needs, and I need to reciprocate with that. There was in the Nature magazine, Nature and Science are two of the biggest magazines in the world, and not biggest, I would say the most prestigious magazines in the scientific world. So they did a survey that if this one state of America, Oklahoma, not a very big state also, not a very prominent state, if say the sunlight, the sun that falls on it, the sunlight falling on it, if we humans had to pay the bill for that sunlight, then that bill would actually be more than the 1 month's bill, would be more than a century of the budget of America. So much is the amount of energy coming over there so profusely. And now we just use some of it, little bit of it. And we don't consider what the trees are providing us, the fruits and honey and so many other things. So it's the bill is much, much, much greater than the US budget entirely. So we are profoundly dependent on nature. And understanding this is an indication that we are moving towards a more complete consciousness. Our consciousness not so constricted, just like if we consider a baby just takes. But as that baby grows into an adult, then the baby should not just be taking, the adult should be taking and giving. So a baby takes means the baby cries, the mother runs and gives food. The baby responds to nature, then somebody comes and cleans their diapers. So the baby is just taking from others. But the baby has to grow up. So we humans, if we are in the unevolved state, humans who are unevolved state, they are simply taking. And if you're just taking, that is like a adult also who keeps taking, that person would be irresponsible. That person would be counterproductive, what they would be doing. And that is what is being reproached over here. We humans need to grow up and take responsibility for our role in the universe. And now specifically how the universal cosmic system works. So I talked about here three things I mentioned. The sacrifice as an element, principle as an element of a worldview. So I am further elaborating on that. And then sacrifice as a ritual or practice. Specific, we'll talk about it in the subsequently. So now, at this point, the Gita takes things forward and it says, okay, if one doesn't want to be a thief, okay, let's assume that there is a universe, which is not as a universe is there, but there is a universal government. It's not just just automatically things coming to us. So if there is a system of cosmic administration, so then how do I play my part in it harmoniously? So when we talk about theism, see, the acceptance of God, belief in God, but the theism, it is implicit in the Gita. The Gita does not give any arguments specifically for establishing a theistic worldview, because that is not Arjuna's concern. The Gita is spoken to Arjuna, and Arjuna already accepts a theistic worldview. But what Arjuna is being educated about is exactly how his fighting or his doing his responsibility will fit in that broader worldview. So we won't go too much into the justification of theism, but it is more, and as science is studying the universe more and more, it is finding that there are so many parameters that are just set right for human existence to be possible. And more scientists are considering that this happening just by natural processes alone, it just seems to be there is some kind of higher organizing principle over there. So if we consider just 6 parameters that we can think of immediately, the Earth-Sun distance. If the Earth had been a little closer, we would have been too hot that life would not have been able to survive. The Earth had been a little further, it would have been too cold. If we consider the Earth's rotation, if the Earth had been rotating a little slower, the nights would have been freezing cold. And the Earth would have been rotating a little faster, the air would be moving so fast that we would have too many storms and tornadoes. If we consider the Earth's tilt, the Earth is tilted, and that is why we have the seasons. That is why without that, we would not have an atmosphere suitable for sustenance. If we consider the O2, oxygen carbon dioxide balance, this is remarkable how it is maintained. There are very few scientific examples in science has been created that say we have humans and we have plants. So we humans, we have a necessity, we have a need, and then after taking a need, we give it as a waste product, we could say, or just a product, even if you don't want to use the word waste product. So normally it's not a sustainable system. So our need is oxygen, and the product that we give out is carbon dioxide. And it's amazing that in nature, there are plants whose need is carbon dioxide and who give out oxygen. This kind of, we could say, symbiotic factory, if science could create it, it would be a miracle. When we have cars, we take in petrol and we give out gas, like a smoke. Now that smoke, it cannot be used to run anything else. But nature is, the O2 CO2 balance is so amazing. Then we can look at exact the atmospheric composition of the earth. This is something similar but slightly different. If there were a little more hydrogen, things would be too much inflammable. I don't want to go into science, but the point is, science too much, but that the universe has so many intricate balances that it's not working automatically. That there is some higher principle. And that higher principle, the Bhagavad-gita explains is that there is a supreme being, and that supreme being has a cabinet of ministers. These are the Devatas. And we need to be in harmony with the cosmic administration. So how we are in harmony with the cosmic administration, that will be discussed in the next verse. Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyad anna sambhava yajnad bhavati parjanyo yajna karma samudbhava.
All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rains. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is performed of prescribed duties.
Yes. So the points which I made in the previous verse about our dependence on the universe, at a very basic level, we can't survive without food. And we don't produce food on our own. Food requires nature's benevolence, and one key element of nature's benevolence is rains. So the first three parts, we can look at this. Humans, we need grains. That is easy to understand. Grains require rains. So that is also easy to understand for us. Now, the next part is, what does he say? Let's say. So then what he says is, rains come from sacrifice. And sacrifice comes from work. So this is what we need to explore a little bit more. Now, this can refer to a specific practice. As I said, it can also refer to the principle. So the principle I have already explained, that we humans, when we do our part in the cosmic administration, so a citizen works, citizen earns a livelihood, and as a part of the livelihood, the salary that they earn, then they pay certain taxes. Like that, a citizen has to contribute. So similarly, when Krishna says, when we work, understanding that I have to work in a mood of sacrifice, I have to play my part in the organization of the cosmos, then that work becomes a sacrifice. So how does sacrifice produce rains? As I said, the sacrifice could be seen as a principle, that when we humans are doing our part responsibly, it could be also seen as a practice. Now, the practice could seem a bit esoteric. How exactly? Okay, if somebody lights a fire, now how is the lighting a fire going to lead to rains? That seems strange. So here, the process is not just mechanical. It is also personal and reciprocal. Now, I'll explain what these two words mean. Mechanical means that there is some research being done by some Indian scientists. We found that if we look in the Rig Veda, and there it's a book of sacrifices, the specific way sacrifices are to be performed, the specific combination of elements that have to be included. When we perform a sacrifice in that way, then that sacrifice at a mechanical level so specific elements in the sacrifice, they lead to certain smoke which has hygroscopic elements in it. Now, hygroscopic components means that often clouds are there in the sky, but the clouds don't give rains. The clouds don't condense. And nowadays, when scientists try to do artificial rains, that means the clouds are there in the sky, they go through a helicopter, and through the helicopter, they try to inject some chemicals into the cloud so that rains will come. So there is some research being done that the sacrifices lead to such hygroscopic phenomena happening. Now, of course, now further research may reveal more about this, but the mechanical working is not as important as the principle over here. That say, for us, the idea that just doing lighting a fire sacrifice could lead to the rains coming, that may seem strange for us. But if we consider, say, somebody in 3000 BC, the Bhagavad-gita is being spoken over here, and now we have 2023 to 2023 AD. So if we look here, fire sacrifices, they seem strange. But if that person from there would come, we could say that digital economy seems strange. That I take a pile of cash, or I take a pile of cash and just give it to a bank, and the bank gives me maybe just one card, or even not even a card nowadays. I just show my phone and that card gets scanned in my phone. And wherever I go, I just put that phone in front of a device and I'm given goods. What is this? He says, you are just wasting money. You're giving it to the bank and you're getting just one image in this device. What is the use of it? You lost so much money. No, the specific mechanism that to understand that, we need to understand the principles of digital economy. But more important, even if those principles are not understandable, principle is I give something, I get something back of value. So to mortal vision, the idea of performing sacrifices might seem strange. Okay, you do a fire sacrifice. What's happening over here? But the important thing is the mechanism is not as important as the principle. That we give and we get. Specifically, how we give and how we get, that is context dependent. So here, Krishna is telling Arjuna that, Arjuna, if you work in a mood of sacrifice, then you are participating in the harmonious functioning within the universe. And that is what you are meant to do. So that's the significance of this verse when Krishna is telling, you should, yajna karma samudbhava, from your work, sacrifice will come. So can I summarize?
Please.
Thank you. So we are still going into a bit of a technical worldview over here. But so we discussed two main verses and within that 2 points. So in the 13th verse, we discussed primarily about how each one of us, so there's a contrast between those who sacrifice and those who don't. And to understand that difference, we discussed about the broader principle that sacrifice is, there's a principle and it's an element in a worldview, and then there is a specific practice to apply that this thing. So as an element in a worldview, to elaborate this particular point, I talked about our dependence on nature, as even science has revealed it to us. When our dependence on nature is there, to the extent we understand that, we can move forward. And then the second point we discussed was, so which was based on the 14th verse, that how we humans, when we function, it's important for each one of us to look at the broader context, that the specifics may be incomprehensible for us. So when we talk about fire sacrifice, there is a mechanical way of looking at it. Hygroscopic elements may succeed being reciprocated, but then there's the reciprocal principle over there. Just as digital economy might be incomprehensible for people today, but similarly, another thing might be incomprehensible for people in the past. But whether it's comprehensible or incomprehensible, the principle is still true. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.